Well, good morning. Hope you're having a nice morning so far. Looking forward very much to being with you in person next week and getting together to worship the Lord. But this week, we'll continue our look at the book of Proverbs. Last week we looked at chapter 1, and so this morning we'll look at chapter 2. But last week when we did look at chapter 1, we started off by taking a look at the importance of the mind and the way that you think in determining the way that you live, and how wisdom and wise living starts in the mind, being renewed in your mind, being transformed in the way that you think, and how that will then lead to a life well lived. And the first way to think right in your mind, as it says in verse 7 of Proverbs 1, is to fear the Lord. That's the start we talked about. That's the foundation for everything else. So, a heavy emphasis right in verses 1 to 6 on the way that you think and how that determines wisdom for your life. And then the next part, practically speaking, the first way it talks about in Proverbs 1, as Solomon is passing on to his son, of how to apply the fear of the Lord, the foundation, is to not be easily enticed into taking for yourself something that ultimately belongs to someone else. And that coming out of a heart of discontentment or coveting, because that will only lead to ruin in your life. And then finally, we talked about how wisdom calls out to everyone. God offers wisdom to absolutely every person on the earth through the conscience that he placed in them, that they were given. But if you refuse to receive that invitation to God's wisdom and to respond to the conscience that God put in you, your life will go in a direction that ends in misery, and you will feel mocked by the world when you're in that misery. And the righteous will dwell secure forever. Those who heed that invitation to wisdom offered to everyone. All right, so Proverbs chapter 2 this morning, starting in verse 1 and looking at 1 through 4. It says, "My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures." So, wisdom is offered to everyone freely, like it says in chapter 1. But it takes effort on our part to receive it and to possess it for the life that we live. It's like saying this. It's like saying a brand new vehicle of your choice is offered to you, free, whoever you are. It's offered to you. That's Proverbs chapter 1. It's calling out. The invitation is there. It's free. Anyone can take it. But you have to make arrangements to drive down to Chicago to pick up the vehicle. That's this. That's Proverbs chapter 2, the first few verses. Now, without question, it'll be way worth it to go down, to make whatever necessary arrangements to go down to Chicago and to do what is necessary to receive that free vehicle of your choice. It's offered, it's free, but you have to value it enough to actually go after it. And that's basically what it's saying in verse 1 to 4. If, the word if is used 3 separate times. Verse 1, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you. So, when you hear God's word, when you hear his wisdom, you're holding on to it. You're receiving it. You're taking it. You're treasuring it up. You're not letting it go. It's valuable to you. Verse 2, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. So it's listening with great attention to God's word. You're paying attention. You're listening carefully. You're inclining your heart. You have an interest. You're leaning towards it to understand what is being shared regarding God's wisdom. Verse 3, yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding. There's that if again. And if you call out, if you raise your voice, if you pray to God and you ask him, you seek, specifically you request. You're praying to God and asking for wisdom. Verse 4, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures. So if you study God's word, you persist until you find the meaning of what his word is saying, or the answer to your questions that you seek. In other words, you're not giving up so easy. You're unsatisfied until you get the meaning, until you get the answers to your question. That's the approach that we should have in desiring God's wisdom and making the necessary effort. If that is the way that you approach it and make the effort, then look at verse 5. Then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. So remember, this is the very foundation for wisdom in chapter 1. This is where it all starts. Fear of the Lord. And if you make the effort that it talks about in verses 1 through 4 of chapter 2, it's saying you will acquire the fear of the Lord that leads to a true knowledge of God, an accurate knowledge of God. Then look at verses 6 through 8. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice and watching over the way of his saints. When you read this passage in verses 6 to 8, it kind of reminds you of what it says in James 1, verse 5. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. Again, same thing as what it's saying here. Just ask God. Ask God for wisdom. He will give it. Without reproach, it will be given to the person who asks. And that's what it's saying here in Proverbs 2. For the Lord gives wisdom. Just make the effort to seek it earnestly, to ask him. Then verses 9 and 10. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity, every good path. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. This is the wisdom of God. And so this is what he will give you if you're asking for it. Righteousness, justice, equity, every good path. God's wisdom deals with doing the right thing. It's not necessarily with making the most money, the decisions that lead to the most, profit in your business, or being the most popular, or always perfectly healthy, or impressing everyone. His wisdom, if you're asking for it, is being blameless and morally right in the way that you live. So if you're asking God for wisdom, be ready to receive this definition of wisdom. To do the right thing, not always the easiest thing. And here's another part of God's wisdom, knowing what to avoid and to stay away from, not getting fooled or tricked. Look at verses 11 through 15. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech, who forsake the paths of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perverseness of evil, men whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. Here's what you are protected from when you make an effort to seek God's wisdom. All these traps above that we just read. Your spiritual radar will go off and the siren will sound, and it will sound loud. And you will know when to walk away. You will be watched over. You will be guarded, as it says here. You will have that help from above, that wisdom from God, and you will immediately identify what is harmful to you, and you will walk away from it. God will help you in those circumstances. Now, see, others who face the exact same situation and don't have the wisdom of God, they will view that same situation as, essentially it's harmless. It's a part of culture. It's just a good time, and it's innocent. Or maybe it's a life hack, or it's a good opportunity that you don't need to be so uptight about. but you will see it for what it is. God will help you in wisdom to see it for what it truly is. God will grant you wisdom in your heart that will watch over you and protect you from going down the wrong path. Now look at verses 16 to 19. It says, "So you will be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words, who forsakes the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house sinks down to death, and her paths to the departed. None who go to her come back, nor do they regain the paths of life." And then finally, those who are truly wise will choose to avoid the forbidden woman, or the temptation of the lust of the flesh, whether you are a man or a woman. The fool falls into this sin, and if he or she is not careful, might make decisions that they regret for life. But the wise avoid it by seeing it for what it is and where it leads. It's a path to destruction, going down. An adulteress, as it says here, has smooth words. I'm harmless. I'm enjoyable. No one will know. And 100 other ways in which we can be easily, and with smooth words, brought into a sin and a decision that we will truly regret. And it's like it says, her path, her house, you enter, you're going down. It's like you go into her house and you're walking downstairs, but the stairs never end. It just keeps going down. Falling for temptation, for that temptation will only lead to so many regrets and decisions that you can't take back, and the consequences that come from it. So much can be lost. So much that was gained, as a reputation or just in relationships over decades can be thrown away so quickly. Fearing the Lord, making an effort to seek wisdom, and having as a return God put it into your heart, will save you from so much pain. And here's where wisdom ultimately leads, verses 20 to 22. "So you will walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. For the upright will inhabit the land, and those with integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it." So as it says, if you seek wisdom with earnest effort, you won't stray off the path to the left, with the man whose ways are darkness. You won't go off to the right into the house of the forbidden woman, into the lusts of the flesh, whose stairs lead down and never stop going down. You will walk in the way of the good. You will keep to the center, to the path of the righteous that God desires for your good. And you will reach the land. You will inhabit the land. God is bringing you to a promised land. Ultimately, where we will be dwelling securely, as it says in Proverbs 1, forever in God's presence and in glory when this life is over, while the wicked and the treacherous are rooted out of it forever. So keep this in mind. Wisdom calls out to everyone, Proverbs 1. But here in Proverbs 2, you must seek it earnestly and with effort to receive the wisdom of God, to have Him place it in your soul and in your heart in order to keep you away, to guard and watch over you from 1,000 evil ways, many things you can easily be tricked by, and from 1,000 temptations of your flesh that appear harmless but can lead to ruin. He will give you the wisdom to discern. The radar, the siren will go off, will be loud, and God will protect you. So, hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Again, look forward very much, all of us getting together next week in person. See you then.